right. Let's start with a praise to Manjushri. Obeisance to Maguru in protecting Manjushri holds his heart of scriptural text in both the things or things as they are. Whose understanding shines forth as the sun unclouded by defilements or traces of ignorance, who teaches in 60 ways with a patient love of Father for his only Son. All creatures caught in the prison of samsara, confused in the darkness of their ignorance, overwhelmed by their suffering. Use whose stronger thunder proclamation of Dhamma arises from the stupor of our delusions from the iron chains of our karma, whose powerful sword of wisdom hews that suffering wherever its sprouts appear, clearing away the darkness of all ignorance. And Tritium and Jushu, whose princely body is adorned with 112 marks of Buddha, who has completed his 10 stages, achieving the highest perfection of Bodhisattva, who has been pure from the beginning. O Manjushu, loving one, with the brilliance of your wisdom, illumine the darkness and close my mind, enlighten my intelligence of wisdom, so that I may gain an insight into the Buddha's words and the text that explain them. Sashi Poki Joshi Meto Ramri Ranishi Nidegembadi Sangye Shindu Mite Owa Ihidrogu Namda Shinla Chubarasho Idang Guru Rana Mendala Ganiyataya Mi Sanji Chadam Sojin Chanula Chanju Bardu Dami Kapsunji Dagi Chushi Jibin Sonum Jin Rolam Ben Sanji Drubarasho Sanji Chadam Sojin Chanula Chanju Bardu Dami Kapsunji Dagi Chushi Jibin Sonum Jin Rolam Ben Sanji Drubarasho Sanji Chedam Soji Chonula Chanju Bardu Dani Tevsun Dagi Chushi Yibin Chonumji Penshi Sanji Drupara Shu Kanki Tuzi Nizoni Tawa Tamji Pambi Chere Tambi Chun Tenzi Kwadam Kela Changse Lo Good morning, everyone. Yes. All right. Surprise, surprise, we have coffee offering. So, we don't have chai, sorry. We don't have chai. So what happened to the chai? Sorry?
Okay.
All right, no worries. Sorry. Apologies. Yeah. Well, you can offer my coffee. Yeah, I guess just so that you can just imagine. Sorry for that. Sorry, Georgie, for putting you on the spot.
Lama Sanji, Lama Che, Tijin Lama Gendun, Kunji Chebo, Lama De, Lama Namla, Cheba, Chin Chin.
Chin Chin.
Sorry.
So delicious. Oh, amazing.
당한수 가지 참디 숨바 펜유 니 셰바니스 펜유 니 셰바다 셴진징 펜유 송고 셴도 린도 체겐데 테다베 펜유 니 셰바니스로 가디큐징 하두스 렌드 제번 gör나니 산지 포스 데멘바 네금든 görmesikс
Just a second, I'm not sure that the YouTube recording is going. All right, let's go on. I don't know what happened to it. I thought I started it, but let's see. Anyway, I have the recording, so if it doesn't go well, can upload it later. So we're gonna pick up today from verse 157, looking at where we are in the text. So in the way to practice after having reflected on this exchange, we are looking at the extensive explanation, and we've been looking at the effects of cultivation. Today we're going to pick up from point C that explains just the benefits and qualities of an attitude of cherishing others once you exchange self with others. All right. Doesn't go, I'll upload it later. That's all.
on direshda tadi Devoting nawa siu peresro gadi chujing haru gyusos ta ngoman tada pardo da dajin jiwigi ro sambil di cheban gyunane sanji gi teni pusum sobe dewa mamba tungar nyowe negam den gyur misigbe 다 되메기 차위 튠 대발란 겨버친 잔주기 샘 공발란 배버 차오스
Now looking at verse 157, it says, in the past you had practiced this act, a situation dissimilar to the happiness of fulfillment of the Buddha could not have been possible. So looking at the commentary to this section, it says in Geshe Dhammarincha's text, beginning with an argument, although one works for the welfare of others for a long time, one would not see such a benefit. In answering that, in drawing from verse 157, it says, if you had earlier carried out the action of exchanging self and others, then it would be impossible to experience occasions of suffering without the happiness of enlightenment complete with the two purposes. Regretting having passed time with meaningless actions, one should strive in meditation on the mind of enlightenment.
어디레셔다 딘자다 제당한도 세우쇼라 ngan ta pardo da chi tenda che meju ra namin ki chawe ki tün da yobati ta jacha jatam barwas ra ta serem ngama namsu phashani ani susu sen di metsi tundon di nam sang dam wa ne ya tuzo man di ani teme ki chawe ki tün dan ro yoba tuzo zo ro yobati 다 세부 쇼지로 왔어. 인제 디 아니 다 신고야 돼. 디 딘디스 만드로야지. 단다 파도 뒤져 촐란드로야디 다 빼사 삼삼지. 몽발랭이 뒤져 싸우니 촐라 마당진. 오늘 단내기 젬팽기 아니 자외 톨이야 베투야기 탑시 가리는 지긴 삼성 그 삼노지 여봐나 덴데 펜사리스 마당 아주 뒤져도 다가스 조르도 asra.
So this section says that we have wasted the time meaninglessly. When we think about it in terms of past lifetimes, certainly we have wasted a lot of time in previous lifetimes, but we don't have to look it up. We can just look at this lifetime and come to see how much time we have wasted up until now on meaningless things. So our time is running out. Our time is running out, and we can also think that, therefore, rather than continue to waste my time, I shall make sure that in the time that I have left, I'm going to spend my time in a meaningful way. So you can say that it was so poor of my side, alas, that I've wasted my time, but now will make the most out of the time that I have left.
Teretat ra tuzu khadu cholan ruguyeme dipe chigchidida lelhabu perwas tara thonde ajrede inya chigchidi di tuzu chola tuzu namyan roya di pe ani karsota komshi dugja ra ngada ngandra wala ya pe masabatini komshi dugja doas ra tinza ti tola ya bebachi goya ani samdan ini gyobachi yobayna ani chisu tuzu chola mandruya 아니 이게 취치야 된들이야 땅투야 학돈도지 아니 샴페인기 썸로 땅야리야 아니 두수 땅투야기 땡땡 개와 요사리스 로디
So when we think of the bad habits that we have in terms of wasting our time, we can recognize how, at least on a personal level, we do have such bad habits. Geshe says that at least when he thinks of himself, he can recognize the bad habits of wasting time. So we need to make effort to make sure that that does not happen. And one way of doing that is through, first of all, regretting the time that we have wasted up until now. And then to think that since I've wasted so much time up until now, I shall make sure as much as I can that that will not occur in the future. In the future, I will use my time for the practice of Dhamma. From now on, not only I will use my time for the practice of Dhamma, I will use it for the benefit of others.
테레 딘즈 땅안조 베 komshigi 비기 다지 두즈 나오양 땅야 kom시도 베 독자도스라 나로이나 다디 베 망분도스라 에 베나간조 다 니쿠고거다 니쿠고거레 이네야 니쿠디 니쿠 니세바당 야 랑치니 아니 두즈도 담진 치토바는 제단 지기도스라 이네 디엔 투문도다 베 쇼기 니세바당 아니 파알로지 추알로지다가 베 두즈 촐라 추주 삼즈 된 로샤지 참상이야 이세바다 람사야 라니지 체지 로 딘딩 페나 딘디 순전의 공지지 태바이나 안간주 투즈드 베 담진치 투사리스 로 sen delaya tuzu tamzin chechin chema to baina ta kyo chimale chik chigin sedi zawani ni charma to bachik ro kanjing anju ta chik pena lamram re chonju re chami gomba direndo da ani chu chegoya chu chedi sendela 대한 추 다다니는 추 지고를 써야지 배 아니 땅콩 끼고 담바 두서 배 아니 같이 가다고 돈 디송도 왔지 등원의 단위 디 레어러스라 맞아 니니 세편의 가을 끼르고요 아니 수 랍투 소소소라야 딩수 싸우니 요마라스라 그래서 단다 제 토약이 내가 될래야 마치 봐나 다 되니 딱 국보 독시 디차고도 왔으라
We're so habituated to mental wandering, to distraction. For example, when we go to sleep, we do need to sleep. We do need to give the body some rest. But then as we wake up from sleep, from having had a rest, we can make sure that we seize the opportunity and manage our time skillfully, that we take care of the way that we manage our time. But then when we wake up, we still often lie in bed. We turn from one side to the next and not immediately rising up from bed and making sure that we use our time skillfully. And sometimes it could be even an hour or two before you actually drag yourself out of bed after you wake up. So think about it in terms of, first of all, as you open your eyes in the morning, that you rise up immediately and start to make sure that you use your time skillfully. We can do that. If we don't do that, if we don't make sure that we use our time skillfully, then if we don't do it in this life, can we have any expectations that we're going to be able to do it in future lifetimes? Sometimes we think that I will make improvements so that I'll be able to do it better and better in future lifetimes. But if we don't start with this life and at least trying to make sure that we use the time in an appropriate way, we will get to the point where we do it in future lifetimes. And this is the intention of many of the other texts that we study, like, for example, the Lamrim tradition, or this text, Shantideva's Guide to Bodhisattva Way of Life, in which we draw conclusions from the meditation and death and impermanence, in thinking that I am able to practice the Dhamma. I need to practice the Dhamma. I need to practice it in this life, and I need to start right from now. And this is what is coming out of, this is also the message that is conveyed in the Buddhist teachings. So we don't know how long we will still stay in this life. Who can tell us how long we will still live in this life? But one thing that we want to do is that we come down on a courageous resolution that we are going to make the most out of our time and make sure that our time is not wasted.
Shiva Shenjinzinla Beba Dambaseti. Dinzada ani Chu Gudun Sudi Deva Drivia Rendos, Dunga Sayet. The Deva Drivia the Dunga Sayagi Pigi Tachi Ji Sudi ani Shenjinzen the res. Manu Jinzayon, then Kunji Shi Somana Shingi, Shenjinzela Bebgo Enza, ani Pigi Tachi. Kyo Tomon Tadabadube, and Ran Pigi Jinzin Shivana Shingi, and Shen Jinzilaya, Lodi Kagurchin, Shen Jinzilaya, and Beba Chedas, and Shen Jinzing, Lord Kigris or that.
That brings us to the next point in verse 158. Let's first of all look at the outline, which says, instructions on making effort to cherish others. So when we make effort in cherishing others, we begin with dispelling a certain doubt that might arise in our mind. You might be thinking, can I actually habituate myself through meditation on exchanging self with others? Can I habituate to cherishing others if I meditate on that? Well, just as it is said in the Guru Puja, cherishing my mothers is the foundation of all that is good. Since time without beginning and up until now, we have grown accustomed to cherishing ourselves, to the point in which we haven't even turned our attention to the attitude of cherishing others. But now we're going to make a change. We're going to deliberately habituate our mind with cherishing others and hiding our own self-cherishing attitude.
Reda, Tolondod, Dajin Jevo Gom Ne, and Com Numaris, Com Candas, Com Turis, Com Numaris Savainas, and the Tevin the Dershandaki, Kotaki Tibala, Chuging on the Cheva, the Tejin, Comber Keys, the Imagic Drosas, the Dindrig on the Ungaris, or didn't Dindawa.
Can I get Ranchins in Beba Sash Chiksuimba?
Shenjinze.
Shenchins in Beba.
Shenjinze and Beba.
Okay. Sorry, I made a mistake in the previous part. So we're going to make effort in cultivating an attitude of self-cherishing. I said that, and we're going to hide our cherishing others. We're going to ignore one's own benefit. We're not going to cherish oneself. We're going to make effort in cherishing others. So this is the meaning of verse 158, which we have mentioned before. So it says, therefore, just as you held as I these drops of sperm and blood of others, likewise familiarize with others. Can you hear me with the rain? Should I? All right. What about now? Better?
So the loin bit.
Sao loin?
Loin.
Oh.
Did that? Penaro, Penanganzu, Shenjin Zinti, Yunguyoba, the Namju, Rani Cheba Sondea, Rangi Pigi, Shatan Chib, produces Lavdi, Cheban Zindea, Young Rangi Pigi, and Sasan said, Rangi Pamaris Lady, Cheba Sondea, Yungoras, Dinashing Pena, and Suzu Shatan Chib, Pudu Mayimba, Nyen Mayimba. Kaya mayin bi pigi chik ani photo kyambo chik dame pogo chik su nyane ngi sotu gins labai na tenne song ne pe ani susu pogo nang che chibu che yungu do asra yungu do din chi samlo dan teta samlo dan ani pe kanji chadam mo song ko shang du kyone dungar gin na bi ta chik nyam ta bi re sambi gi ani samlo jiya ba na ranshin ge telaya semda nibuchi kanji semda nibuchi chawa na ani shen jeban zimbare sro tilak shen jeban zinsu siki mundo asta dinza di lui komma konji re ma do bege chi pigi yul de da chi jewa yeme gi keba chi zawani ni rogyo samares.
So with an attitude of self-cherishing, we take care of those who are close to us. To begin with, we cherish our, you could say, our own flesh and blood. We also cherish our relatives, our parents, our family members, partner, children, and so forth, in that they are our blood relatives, that are related to us. So with an attitude of cherishing others, we then think of how it'd be like to care for someone who is not related to us at all. Like, for example, when you think of someone that has no relation to you whatsoever. When you, for example, if you adopt a child that is not related to you at all, you think that I am going to care for that child, then you come to care for that child as if it was your own flesh and blood. So you can do that. That comes through, first of all, orienting yourself to cherishing another person that is not related to you, and coming to cherish that person as if it was your own flesh and blood. So similarly, then we think of suffering sentient beings. We think of caring for these suffering sentient beings to the point in which we develop a sense of closeness to them. And when we develop a sense of closeness to them, there arises an attitude of cherishing others. This is a way to do that, through developing familiarity with such states. And if we do accustom a mind to cherishing others in this way, even if they're not directly related to us, such cherishing others attitude can arise.
파마타기 코와 차기 특벌이 주비 륜딜라 켜기 난진 콤바체바터 대신 심진 현라와 다도 손이 제번좀바 콤바 기당 콤바 탈지만 규로스.
So as we said, it begins with an argument. I'm not able to habituate myself by meditating on exchanging self and others. To answer that, it says, since the welfare of others has such benefits, one should meditate on cherishing other sentient beings by holding them as self, just as one meditates on holding this body as mine, which is established out of the impure semen and blood of father and mother, who are other. By meditating in such a way, complete the meditation on exchanging self and others. Daktan Shen Jebasea the Dang Shen Shen Dain, then it's some time arrest in Lagerwa. And then Java did know in a Daran Gongo.
Yeah. Just the Java Jatan the Tangan Koji Shambaji Kurgudus, Ra Kanzana Piggy Pami and a Chagi table the tribi Lun Dilla. Now Yambi somebody Yomares. Ni Lu Savage Moto. Lu Dilla now Yambi logic, then they give Yomares. Ketsi Lo Hengi Delia and Lu Dilla now Yambi logic Yobana Ludunga Shagores. Ludunga Chagmares. There's a D and a Ludilla now Yam said Ni Lu Yamach. Telekogores.
So a few days ago, I mentioned that Lama Tsongkhapa says in his Lamrim Chemo that when you exchange self with others, you don't think of yourself as others and others as you, but rather you exchange a self-cherishing attitude with an attitude of cherishing others. But still, it seems to me that in this commentary, Geshe Dhamma does speak about such an exchange, the one that Lama Tsongkhapa refuted. So looking at this commentary, it says, since the welfare of others has such benefits, one should meditate on cherishing other sentient beings by holding them as self. So here it seems that Geshe Dhamma says that you do need to think of others as yourself, just as one meditates on holding this body as mine, which is established out of the impure semen and blood of father and mother, who are other. So Geshe says that still when you read through this commentary, it doesn't really take the words literally, still kind of think that there is a certain meaning that you need to draw from Geshe Dhamma words. So it's not, Geshe reckons that thinking of the bodies of others as my body is not a thought that will be generated in one's mind. So thinking of, for example, the attitude that we have to our body, we think of this body as being my body. We don't think of this body as being I body, right? We think about it as being my body. So, for example, if when we think of the innate grasping at the self, if the innate grasping at the self would be generated in conceiving of the body as being I, then that should be there right from birth, right? Right from birth, the innate grasping of the self should have conceived this body to be I. But that doesn't exist. This body is mine rather than I.
Rida on this part, Gachambudo Chadu the Mado, Pig Dangzing, any number Shawandi, Kanzag Danzan, the Chuki Danzas, Ra Shawandi, Lu Pig, Pompula Mini, T Rang Tini Tribunzim, somebody, Chuki Danzan, Shagor Mado, Kanzag Danzan, Shago Maris, Ra.
So we might need to make some clarification. So looking at it, grasping at self, there are two types of grasping at self. There's grasping at the self of persons and grasping at the self of phenomena. So for example, grasping at the body to exist by way of its own characteristics is not grasping at the self of persons. It is grasping at the self of phenomena.
Tirdinzada any Kanzag Danzi, and Nanzil Hingiti, Nanzil Hingiti, Migbatilaya, not some the Shire Modovi, Nig Pumbudi, Shago Maris. Nig Pumbu Masha Kazan, Nanzil Hingiti, Pumbudilla Mine, Rangtini Driven Zingio Maris.
Gonna do the youngest one?
Nanzil Hingi Migbalaya, not some the Shire Modo, Nig Lud Shago Maris.
So similarly, when we look at the body, the innate grasping at a self is not grasping at the body as existing by way of its own characteristics and taking it to be I or me. The innate grasping at the self in relation to ourself, in relation to ourself as persons, is just grasping at me as if I exist by way of my own characteristics.
데르딘자 간지 아니 간진 행기 디게 류들 미기메바디 세우세냐레스 페나 간주 사운단다 류 차시 참아 류 피기게 류 차시 참아라 파치 사운단다 아니 니기 류니 빡빡니 탁니 르방니 짜세기 아니 틴디기 사운드 레거마도 텔미니 딩나오 냠비 로직 로 행기라 짜오니니 요마레스.
And this is quite clear when you start to look at the way that the innate grasping at the self apprehends its object. In that, for example, the innate grasping at the self is grasping just as at I, to observe I rather than observing the body and thinking I or thinking me. So, for example, in relation to the body, when we investigate the body, there is the skin and the flesh and the bones and the blood and so forth. So in relation to each one of them, just as we think that this is my body, we also think this is we also apprehended those different things to be my skin, my bones, my flesh, my blood, and so forth. The innate grasping does not think of any of them as I.
Ngai wanzimi zibala ngi lu segi pi pamigi kuda li triba telaya and duba telaya namshishu tu xiongdigi di ani kaso da gyu nyelenchini tribigi ani pi lu dodo telaya ani ngi lu segi ngi lu seni ani chiti chiagi samlo tu kombadi yung yobada siwredos o diris ta dilawores ro tinza ni simjense ro ni gipe ani course do kanji chamaloya ani community tembaina community theores ro
Chezang kabdela deshin senchen shenlayang daktu sungne daktu senasana dagiwa sone yama daktu
dakiwar daktu sona dakiwar ni simjense ro ni kegyuri yakbuti ninja would shut out.
So the innate grasping at the self is grasping at I. It is not grasping at my body as I. So then we have the apprehension of mind, the grasping at mind. Like, for example, this is my body, this is my relatives, and so forth. So here Geshe interprets what Geshe Rinchen says is when you think of grasping at my body, and through that you come to cherish your body and care for your body. Similarly, you can grasp at other sentient beings to be mine, just like you grasp at my body. So these other sentient beings are mine, and therefore I care for them, I cherish them. So I went back to the commentary and says that, but look at what Geshe Rinchen says here. It says, since the welfare of others has such benefit, one should meditate on cherishing other sentient beings by holding them as self, by holding them as mine, rather as me, rather than holding them as mine. Well, Geshe says that he interprets that to be holding them as mine, rather than holding them as me. So then you can think that, well, these sentient beings are mine. This translator is mine. This person is mine. And through that, you can care for them.
Gyros ta sumba jobi jesu dribi tsula ni ngoda dajin jin jobi nyamsu lembi tse sem ondu chawa o tambula sum rangi lekso tamje jenla joba ta rani jendun de membi ner loma ta jobi nyamsu lembi sur du tembo o tambu rangi lekso tamje jenla joba la ni ngoda rang la thakdo chari bo ribos.
That brings us to the next section in the text. Now, when we look at the way to practice the application of this attitude, which is the third point in the section, in the extensive explanation of the way to exchange self with others, it says first of all, there are 2 points to that, the actual and point B. When practicing the application of exchanging self and others, one should exert control over one's mind. But we begin with the actual point consisting of 3 sections, applying all of one's entire collection of goodness to others, devoting oneself to taking the lower position for the sake of others, and then a presentation of the way to practice application in brief. Now, when we begin with applying all of one's entire collection of goodness to others, there are 2 main points, the actual and the reasonableness of others being jealous of you.
Lekso tamji rangi lekso tamji shen la ya jurwa ngode shengi tokchen chenene dagi lula jinawa teda tenyin chok chene kyoji shen lan pamper juice.
So verse 159 says, having thoroughly examined the purpose of others, you shall steal whatever appears on your body and use it for the benefit of others.
Da pigi da ani shengi shen la ya tado che chen ra shen la ya zo shen la ya tado che ne ani chi karin dangamundu kar gogudu chi yora da odinajin samlotani tini chi suzu la ya leksok pigi chi ani kari yoba ina ya ra shen la pen toya ge ani chi kari yoba ina kanji thana ya namgyu tsamado mena ya ani di tsamalo pigi ranjinzingi ro ranjinzingi dagdo song dewi ndi ani yobje ngobo kan yoba dipe an ta pena chobu soro chene ani shengi ani ya pende duya ki ani tendala ya ani tango gres chego gres ro pejo chego gres.
So here Shantideva says that you need to look at what you have and what other people need, what they're lacking, what is not sufficient for them, and give them what you have. So it could be a material thing, but even if you cannot give them anything, then at least in your body language, in your actions and so forth, you should take care of others. So then looking at the things that we hold on to with an attitude of cherishing oneself combined with an attitude of grasping at the self. Here it says that we should take those things that we hold on to with a self-cherishing attitude and give them away to others, as if we kind of snatching it from ourselves or taking it away from ourselves by force and giving it or taking it by force from the person that has a self-cherishing attitude, and we're going to give it to others.
Tirda tu samlotani nganzuta chik meze khanza kewata ani kewa tham eba lang yor daina ya kewa tham ebe ring la ya pi ran jinjing ki chok che de ma do be shen jinzen la ya ta chik nima chik la ya chik shen jinjing ki samlo da nyamdu chik nyamdu ro chik che tu yo ma ro ta nganzu nima chik tanda che de la ya ani chik che che ya ki tunjin chansang sang pi 아니 즉 대버침 기위신이의 체비급 텐디질이야 아니 변은 뒤즈 단신의 신진세의 냠도 즉 아니 드로바이나 다 디기 아니 마음비기 깨왕 범차 망부기 아니 디기 심하지 숙조요 바디 야차 야다 버레스 로 틴자 아니 남긴된 기치 약슈디 아니 란진징기 다부잡 아니 소술의 배제명이 골라망골라디 셴라테디아디 제보 잡진 소설의 약슈디 비 딥하 셴레테 두슈디스 아니 랑진zen의 냠도 배주치야지 니마직 체다 아니 베아 소와 믹스지 텐델 레시그레스로.
We've already taken countless rebirths, and in all the countless rebirths that we've already been through, we have solely cared for ourselves with a self-cherishing attitude. We haven't accustomed our mind to an attitude of cherishing others? Have we spent even a single day in which all our activities were conjoined with an attitude of cherishing others? We haven't done it, let alone other lives. When we look at this life, we can see how we we're still accustomed to an attitude of cherishing others, and we find it hard to even spend one day with only an attitude of cherishing others. So we think about the conducive conditions that we enjoy in this life, and we think of the conducive conditions that are afforded by meeting with a spiritual teacher, a virtuous friend. And we think that therefore I will make sure that I will develop familiarity with an attitude of cherishing others. I will in all ways put a stop to a self-cherishing attitude. And therefore we exchange our attitude in, for example, giving everything that is good and perfect to others and taking things that are the least bad things, negative things, or kind of the things that are of the least quality to ourselves, offering everything that is good to others and taking the least to ourselves. So this is how we can deliberately or intentionally habituate ourselves in this life with an attitude of cherishing others.
Tere kainzana nganzu pigi ranchin zingi ane gyabden rawdi ane marik balaya tuk dewachi kanji ane zumba jalaya tuk dewachi kolaya dembi nelu mewachi ro shenchin zindi gyabden semalaya nelu javi pigi sherwalaya ane gyabden yobanza kolaya demba yobachi tindi imza ane ranchin zindi kyawa thoma mebani komni yung yoba inaya 아니 그 덴바생인디 덴비 톱생인디 뒤은 튼동 지나노라 개바이나야 베 뒤은 림불로 콤댕이디 람삼 비게비 아니 고실로 투야지 그 덴비 톱그 용거 여반자 깨어 토모면 단다버든 간주 니무뚝송 콤르데이나야 니디 세동 찍려야 슈갸니 깨어 토모면 콤샤와디 짬에 소투도 왔어라 딘자 간주 추적 까마카시기실이야 아니 비기 덴비 촐려야 테스트 랑투 바이나 디 슈기 아니 좀바 디페 냠마비 슈 소토야 임바디 아니 갸시 야단 바레스로
A self-cherishing attitude has been supported by ignorance. Ignorance which portray a falsity. The falsity that it portrays is a reality that is untrue, a mode of existence that is untrue. Whereas, contrary to that, cherishing others is dependent on wisdom. It is supported by wisdom. And therefore, it is a state of mind that conforms to the truth. So we have the ability to create a habit with an attitude of cherishing others. So since time without beginning and up until now, we have been so accustomed to an attitude of cherishing ourselves that it became a deep a deep attitude in our mind stream. But then we can develop an attitude of cherishing others, and even if we do it just for one moment in this life, which means that we are not habituated with that yet, and the power of another cherishing attitude could be weak still, since it is based on reality, it is based on the truth, we can grow accustomed to that, and through that completely eliminate a self-cherishing attitude in this short life that is rife with the 5 degenerations. We can do it in such a short span of time because cherishing others is an attitude that is based on the truth, on reality, and therefore if we become accustomed with that, we can completely bring down the domain of cherishing ourselves.
제 대들 상바 자네스 조와 심진 신기 된라 똑치 셰바 자라 체네 라니 자 심진라 네바 체메체 딱바 체네네 다그 르란 데비 오버 진나와 대단 대니 초데 다그른 점바 땅와 치네스 다그른 점바세데 니 비기 니세 니 심진로 어디들에 봐 땅와 치네스라 거다 땅와 치네 큐기 심진 신라 펜버 주지지 장심 랑엘라 트렌 데바오스
In reading through the commentary to verse 159, it says, having said, I shall give the welfare of others great practical consideration, and having trained in this motivation, Bodhisattvas advised himself. Bodhisattvas advised himself, having considered whether one is harming others or not, whatever desired object one observes on one's body, having stolen them, give up the grasping at mine and put them to use for others, and thinking that other sentient beings are mine. These are my sentient beings, and therefore you provide others with those things.
다 니버 랑라 탁도 차리버스 로 네수 야부 성당바이나 아니 탁도 차리기레스 셴양 탁도 공버 차디 다기 셴 미길라 당토 셴 마와타 단 셴펜 단 펜시 셴미시 달라 탁도 치메치스.
Now the next point in verse 160 speaks of the reasonableness of others being jealous of you. Kind of looking at your situation, you can see how actually what one could be envious of your situation. So verse 160 says, I'm delighted but others are sad. I'm high but others are low. I benefit myself but others do not. Why am not jealous of myself?
tirda ro ani chik toso tunjo nganzu tadu samdana pena ngaran surawa chik ro ta nyam thagbi simjen ta chame bala tebana hajang bi ta chik phusum choba ro kibu ani shuj ro asra ani bigi ya bigi ta chik ani sososo namju tuntu neba yebi sanzam la le deba 간지 아니 튕갱이 차니 간지 타니다 푸숨 소바 레데이냐 탑 두슈질이야 틴지기 푸숨 소베 깔이야 냠타비기 심징기 된라야지 까마카시질 삼노타 마투야디 베 탑교 레삼비기 삼노지 게용 게 요라스다로 무연니스로스 띵안조.
So here, of course, we speak of ourselves, or we observe ourselves in relation to others. We do need to think about it in relative terms. So in comparison with others, and there are so many other living beings which find themselves in different pitiful situations, difficult situations. We're so fortunate when we examine our own status, our own situation, how lucky we are, how fortunate we are, how good it is to for us to be able to encounter those possibilities, those opportunities for developing our wisdom. In that sense, we enjoy perfect conditions, and others do not enjoy those conditions. So often even if we enjoy such a good and perfect situation, we are so used to thinking of ourselves that we don't think of others which are bereft of such opportunities.
데르다 간지 간주 단다 투비 링라야 마치바이나 데네 카야 민준비 까블야 당이지 제고 상바이나 치타샤스라 야차야다마 치타샤스.
And if we don't think about it now, if we only come to think about it when the situation turns bad for us, it's going to be too late, right? When the tide turns and you find yourself in situations in which it is no longer that good situation for you, and then you think that I need to do something about it, it's going to be already too late.
데르다 janla 펜도 치트비갈야 지 펜도 치에 차기 예비 갑들야 nganzingi jinzi shukchibi wangi pejuchi manuyachi marawachi changdoyachido sta didupe nongchu chigo saresara kazen rangi chik tongsa di dewa shu yemeda meshi darwa ina nguyo nezore tensan chongyore da tensan kan doncha chik royana ani bigi gyanamlo ya ani pebigi 아니 아마 찍고식 지단 남주 때 교우래도 봐 교우진 때 대대인 뭐 야, 따지 배샤딘데 딱 가니나 라고지라 딱 가시 로버지에 가시 찍기 모두 스페셜디사시 배샤디사 온디 딱 가사 칼라야 뮤남 대사기 페나 아니 지 가사 칼라야 죽도다 다 단다 단 냠타고 수 gen고차 아니 대린될 주관은 산이 템버 제로도다 다도 주는 다 단다야 랑춘 랑투문다 마두도 콘즈 셴바도서 다 부경 부도서 용 몰래 로버체 난 자마서로 치온디 난 자마서온디 다 뮤난기 다 배샤 텐다다 아 야가 그 배샤 님버디 야고 뭐 티슴라지 도도 코라 다 배주지에 말하다 아니 셴바딘 페는 봄니는 락스면스 다이나 뭐 알다면 슛 부바간 동토가 다 딘지차다 다 딘지도 다디 가스는 디 용이 카드라라 배샤드 라비 카드라야 소소 배주지 셴라야 직제샤바나 촐라 도마르다 아 타투 직 마음발야 상로단에 란진진 군라 투 지원디 간지 소소라야 론처 라와디야 촐라 드샤시 야샤 야다면 도스 뭐 통한 도스 다들아
So if we don't think about it, they will come a time in which we will no longer be able to do something that is beneficial or greatly beneficial for the sake of others. So we need to think that I need to be of benefit to others. I need to work for the sake of others. But often we're being crippled by a self-grasping attitude. And because of being crippled by a self-grasping attitude, there comes a time in which you could say that it's almost too late to do something for the sake of others. Like, for example, Geshe has an example. He doesn't know if it's that related to this point. But anyway, it's so a report about something that happened in recent days, maybe about a week ago. So there was an old Tibetan lady living in India. And of course, living conditions in India are poorer than living conditions here in general. So she's been stashing money in different places in the house over the years. Right? So under the mattress or in other parts of the house, she's been stashing money, and she now became quite old and frail. She can no longer take care of herself. So the local Tibetan office in the settlement has sent some people to help her out. She cannot even prepare her own food, or even as far as just pour a glass of water by herself for herself and drink it. So she needs someone to assist her on a daily basis. So people went into the house and started to sort out their stuff, and they found money stashed all over the place. They found Indian notes that went out of circulation. So there were a few tens of thousands of notes that have already went out of circulation, and money that is still in use. She had a few hundred thousands of rupees that she could have used for the benefit of others or for the benefit of herself. But Geshe says that when you think about it, then when the attitude of that self-grasping becomes a time which, let alone not using it for the sake of others, you cannot even use it for the sake of oneself. So then thinking about cases like that, then Geshe thinks that when we think of things that we have, then we can think that I need to use some of my money to make sure that I can get by, to fulfill my own needs, and the rest I'll just give it away to others, may it be for the benefit of others. So we can do it now. We can do it now rather than coming to the point in which it will be too late.
데르다 나도다 오스트레일리아 배설 보면 개말했다 동전이 숨 살라로지 어디지러왔어 에 대이는야 간지 소소의 총바티 수수의 롱죄디 롱죄 마투니 촐랑 줘봐이나 셴라야 죄 마투 소소라야 사마투 다 같이 촐랑 줘봐이나 데 초치야면다스 디 촐라 땅인데 수르슬라바이나 아니 비게 진징 권람이 단 되차티 로 되차티기 간지 롱주 촐라 땅에 뭐마디 되샤들인도 싫어. 난주 밀리테 샤반다 촐라레 삼성로지. 아니 조도르 삼성로지. 디고 아니 조 고사질이야. 조 고사질은 조바이나 원치나 가고곰고 예르데 이네 가주다 몽비왕기. 디 지신교 말았으라.
So when we think about it in Australian terms, when you think of $2,000 or $3,000, it might sound a lot of money, but in the great scheme of things, it's actually not a lot of money. So often, even with that, we, let alone incapable of giving it away to others, we cannot even use it for our own sake. So we put this, we stored some amount of money, we cannot give it to others, we cannot use it for ourselves, and then comes a time in which it is already wasted. It is already wasted, and it cannot be used either for ourselves or for others. So there's no point in wasting money like that. So what is the responsible factor, the factor responsible for creating that wastage? Well, it is our own desirous attachment that is based on self-grasping. So if sometimes we think that if I give it away to others, someone that is at need, then my money will finish, or I will waste my money. If I give it to others, I will waste my money, or I will run out. But then if you think about it from a different perspective, if there's someone that needs it, if there's someone that needs some help, it'd be better to give it to someone else rather than ending up in a situation where not only others cannot use it, also you were not able to use it, and it's already too late.
Terida da jejin simjin shen magilla lonchula sobe dan tola shen mawatan dan rana pimbi le gewa chela shen teder mechi cheba membe da dela simjin shen medewa chishi chebe da toala tado chimechi cherig sos ra da ganji sosula yoba di yogo machaba niba yoba di yobi ko machaba pi lonjo yoba di yobi ko machaba tinti chi samlo tangbayina 원내기 차도치 제어바치 마가와 제어바치 로 랑랑이야 어디래도 왔어.
It says further, one should also meditate on jealousy, thinking, I'm happy, but other sentient beings are not happy. I'm superior from the point of view of enjoyments and the like, but others are inferior in this way. I practice virtue that benefits me, but others do not, and therefore I am blissful and others are not. What is the use of that? Why is one not jealous towards myself who is higher? It is suitable to be jealous. So if you think about it like that, it is suitable in that sense to be jealous of oneself when you think of your own situation. It is suitable then to think that such resources, such fortune and so forth should also be shared with others. It is suitable to think about it like that.
다 랑이 신든도 멤비 늘 홍와라 숨 랑기 견 딱바타 심젠신라 니바체바 샤바타 멤비 늘 홍와스 당부 랑기 견 딱바니 단 데다 차기티 신기 동갈 달라 조 간진드네 찌찌찌 다기 견라 딱바 키스.
It brings us to the next point, which consists of 3 sections. So point 2 in the way to practice the application of this attitude is devoting oneself to taking the lower position for the sake of others. Now, the 3 points in that section are examining one's own faults, confessing wrongs one has done to others, and devoting oneself to taking the lower position. Let's begin with verse 161 that says, I must separate myself from happiness and involve myself with the sufferings of others. Why am I doing this? At that time, I should examine my faults.
아니 비게 뒤딱도 로 아니 균 중고야디 rangyun imbati sunguyoras ra rangi ngoni gyundu setu bayna ani nyeba tamji kigroyachik ra goba tamji dogroyachik ra nyegyun gu chat samalo yonsa gi shi zudi ani rangyun ton legu yabanza ani tütawdo rangyun tagoyadi kichijures ra dijik sungudas ra.
So this section says that we should expose our own faults. In that sense, we should be critical of ourselves, expose our own faults. In that if we want to avoid all problems and difficulties, we have to address our own faults. Our own problems, our own suffering are based on our own shortcomings. And once we expose them, once we become critical of them, we have the opportunity to overcome them.
Tadiri ona di imbayna ani da dewa da trawa cheche dungar nela longoya ta da gi dewa ani shenla jani shengi dungar da la tsu lengoya gi gyunzen kharis ra ta dindi imbani gyunzen kharis ya di samloji tobaji yon chogro was ra.
Now, looking at the wordings of verse 161, it says, I must separate myself from happiness and involve myself with the suffering of others, which means that I must give my happiness to others, and I must take on the suffering of others upon myself. So you might wonder, for what reason should I do that?
Di pendo chejong chani ra goba chejong chani pigilaya o di chani sungoras di chani song tangba na jacha ja tangba ani rang dewa di jen ya jor jin weba ta jeng donga di dala tsu len weba chik ra pigi nguyu ne tsu song tangba na jacha tang chago res ra rang slawn di michigla ya tu yoba ra jen slawn di ta maybe simjingi 아니 내전에야 투대와 딘디지 성당원디 아니 비게 알다뭐 잠깐 만유 지구토니 아니 장 비게 둥안내를 홍바이네야 셴라 대지 좀나 디기여바디 잠깐 거랑 토니 줍투고라스로.
So in thinking of the reason for giving your own happiness to others, is taking upon ourselves the suffering of others. When we think about it from the point of view of purpose, what is the greater purpose that is served? What is the lesser purpose that is achieved? You can come to the conclusion 100% certainty that it is suitable to give away your own happiness to others, and it is reasonable to take upon yourself the suffering of others. Because just in terms of numbers, I'm just one individual, and others are countless in numbers, they're limitless. So just in terms of numbers, even if it means that I suffer, if others are happy, it makes sense.
데레비나 아니 미치다 미치니 수케치그스라바나 미치 케치그스그라다 미치 케치그스그라 미갸다 미치니 수오 미갸 케치그다스 미똥 팀범다 미치니 수기지나 미 똥다 팀범 케치그스 어느 디웨나다 미치다 아니 남기 타드냐비 심지니 보디 수케치그스라나 다 dursakore요 말았으라 dursako레 메와치 텐티직 상로직 땅투바이나 아니 랑기 디지신주 용야데 르타니 심진 생기 체도 둥할 용토야디 야차야다마 용고여스라 야스 찬주스미 냠네 디레도다.
And when we think about it in terms of numbers, for example, if you compare one person versus 10, who is more important? Of course, the welfare of 10 people is more important than the welfare of one individual. What about 100 people or 1,000 people or 10,000, so millions of people or countless sentient beings? Certainly, the welfare of millions of people is more important than the welfare of one individual or two individuals. So when we think about it like that, we can come to see that more important than my own happiness and well-being as one single individual, the welfare of other countless sentient beings is far more important. And therefore, even if in some situation I experience pain or suffering, if it means that countless of other living beings are experience happiness and well-being, that is completely suitable, that is completely reasonable.
Dan segoso dewa chiyo tang tawar kide shen lang tonglas shen la tongla shen ki dongar dala joshin langwar chawo rangi nyeba cheba la rengan de ne chi 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 chansam daki kyon la takbar ki shivos.
So the commentary to verse 161 says, I shall separate myself from all my happiness, such as food, clothing, and so forth, and give them to others. I shall attach the suffering of others to myself and accept them. Bodhisattvas should investigate the faults by asking themselves from time to time, why did I do this?
다 심진 현라 nyeba cheba shakba ro 심진 현라 ya nöte cheba 심진 현라 ya da ro 아니 통종 cheba this nyeba res nyebanza shakdam chego res.
So then the next section is confessing wrongs one has done to others. So confessing wrongs such as belittling others, having a sense of pride and so forth, all of these should be confessed.
젠기 nyeba cheba yang rangi kyondo gyurchilas dagi nyeba chung chekyang keu manla rabdushus.
Or we can say all of this should be laid down. So looking at the next 6 lines in the text, it says, although others may do something wrong, I shall transform it into a fault of my own. But should I do something even slightly wrong, I shall openly admit it to many people. By further describing the renown of others, I should make it outshine my own.
이것도 젠기 takbal hak jobe rangi takbal sirki news.
It says in the first 2 lines of verse 163, by further describing the renown of others, I should make it outshine my own.
다들 당한주 비기다 지 젠기 nyeba cheshabati ro 젠기 nyeba cheshabati 안지 소수기 아니 당들랭야도디 카보 페로스로 다이 원지나 딘디지 수 규르투바이나 아니 폭사디 조 폭사디 술로 포그스라니 비기기 아니 니버군기 자와 랑진진려야 포그도스로 어디리 캡상 고마디 소수라고 그랬어 랑진진 용도 저나 신진진 기야기 자와지 추도 다 신진진기 성로 레바이나 디기 자와지 추도간자 약슈데렌다스 자 rangi kyondo gyurchilas jengi nyeba cheba yang rangi kyondo gyurchilas ro
It's when we think of taking the faults of others upon myself, we can see how hard it is to do it. It's quite hard to take upon yourself the faults of others. It is so difficult because when you think of who is the one who is getting hurt when we take upon ourselves others' faults, the one that is getting hurt is our own self-cherishing attitude. Because self-cherishing finds it so painful, it's hard to take upon ourselves the faults of others. But if we do that, if we take upon ourselves the faults of others and through that reduce our self-cherishing attitude, it means that we'll have a better ability to develop an attitude of cherishing others, which is the root of our happiness and well-being.
dagi nyeba chung chekyang keu manla rabdushus ro tanganzu rangjinzingi shawandi kyurchene 아니 랑기 대기기 체도 셴라야 답베 아니 룽아 익슴 고토니 다 마르 체대지 랑기 대기기 체도 다디 신중 제바이나야 땅이디 농투 쇼르송스 이슴지 셴기 텐라야 다지 상문 디리제 땅투 마송스 어셀 소바 어디 셴 가서 다지 셴든 체라야 셴든 체발야 지 nötsi yöbigi ani lunga yisum gi kyan kan yobati pa shenla daktu bayna ani di tobgi ani champagne cheyagi samlu shukchiri yongadi yachi yadam pengiyorus ra.
And therefore, as it says in the verse, although others may do something wrong, I shall transform it into a fault of my own. And then it continues in saying, but should I do something even slightly wrong, I shall openly admit it to many people. So if we, with our body, speech, and mind, do even do something negative, even if it's just slight, as this section says, I shall admit it to others. I shall openly admit it to others. If I act in a way that is uncalled for, we should say, I've done it. If we, with our actions of body, speech, and mind, if we damage the welfare of others, we can openly admit it, because openly admitting is, if we do it over time, it will increase our attitude of cherishing others.
다 신기 타바 학주베스 비기 따치 신기 아니 자와야고 가르치기야 바니야 라 가르치기야 바디 아니 베 민들이야 미션을 저친 라 민들이 연대야고 디어스 미디 치kunje 야고 디어스 레비 차카인 바디 베 저친이 신야 짜야시 라 딜레 바이나 아니 찍바레 단진한 신기 복사디 아니 비 타도던 댄섬레야 포그레마도 겔 소솔이야 아니 네비살이야 펜범바식 차고레스 아니 랑기 타바시기네세디 수수기 테스 셰바디 람상 피길야지 아니 캡다치 아니 디체바나 아니 나르게단 댄섬다 드좀 페야지 마도비게 디 캐랑기 레비차디 야른로야레 카이 펜도요 마레스 딜리 바 시기네션의 약슈티 차그레스.
It says, by further describing the renown of others, I should make it outshine my own. So whatever renown others have, good reputation and so forth, we should mention it, we should speak about it, we should highlight the good qualities of others when it is suitable. Because again, if you think of who is being harmed by doing that, well, it is harming our own self-cherishing attitude. It is harming our own self-grasping attitude when others are made renowned. So it says, therefore, that I should make it outshine my own.
테르다 남규 간주디 체마투야디 나라치 경라르레 삼성 나라치 느그레 삼성디 온니게 잔예라야 저 아니 타와드 탐지김비 고보톰 등hin기 장라야 느그요 마레스 너사조 디피기 장진징기 공부텔라야 저 비기 뜻지 장슬라온디 비 유딘니 베 아니 지랑랑드 좁데바 따위기 다랑진진지어스 오 델라야 뉴고레스 로 델라 뉴고고요레스 다라 원지나.
So when we think of this line that says that I shall make others' renown outshine my own renown, we often think that actually that will harm me. But for someone that wishes to attain the state of liberation or the state of Buddha, the state of omniscience, it doesn't harm you. It doesn't harm others' renown to outshine yourself, because what it does is it harms your own self-cherishing attitude, that is cherishing a self that seems as if it exists objectively. This is what it harms, your own self-cherishing attitude. And therefore, in no way it is harming you. Actually, it does provide you with conditions which are conducive for the root of your own happiness.
Devena jenki rangla neba cheba tawi nyeba cheba yang chansam rangi kyondu gyowa chela di deba rangi nyoma kyochi chi kowa chawo simjen la dagi nyeba chungu chejang gyawa mambo la rabdu shede rangi nyeba kelemba wo jenki thakba da nyeba joba tuyana rangi kyan lakbar jobi dobar chashi rangi thakba siki nu jeba mongomba chawo was.
Now, the commentary to this line says, although others commit faults such as harming one, bodhisattvas should make these their own faults and carry the burden of experiencing the results themselves. Although one has committed small faults with regards to sentient beings, one should make them known to many beings and accept one's faults. If one hears of the fame of others and hears that they're being talked about pleasantly, one praises them even more and plays down one's own renown. That's all. So we will leave the text here for now. Just a reminder. So we have food served at the cafe in the next few days, from Thursday through to Sunday. So if you wish to have food, then please book. I think that all of us monastics have already booked through Circular, but the rest you can book for lunch if you're around. The next module will start in June 1st. Yeah, actually, today is Wednesday, right?
Yes.
So we still have a session. Sorry. So we still have a, yeah. Yeah. All right. Yeah. I was ready to leave things here for now. All right.
Yeah.
So Tony is asking, when we look at these faults of self-cherishing as listed down here, can we just as well apply those faults to self-grasping, since that you could do that? Yeah. Yeah. Dila kabdila ranchen zin la nyeba mamutendwa, kyun mamutendwa, kran samna kyun tenzo tsamaya danzin la daran juna dirves, daran ju yorves.
Danzin la.
Oh.
Rata zo danzin ki topki, ra. Rang jinzin ding, nge sambala rang jinzin ki kyun ko khombu chaya zo di pigi langri chesa zo di danzin inza. Ah, teaching it is.
Yeah, Geshe reckons that the faults that are pointed out here at self-cherishing actually pointed at self-cherishing, which is strongly involved with self-grasping. So these faults actually, when you think of kind of this thinking of a self-cherishing attitude as a mass of something, kind of this faulty mass, actually this bundle of self-cherishing is attributed to grasping at the self. It is because of grasping at the self that we have such a strong sense of cherishing ourselves. So these faults, you could say, also faults of grasping at the self.
Da di gumuludu domja she daran chisin pumu ziyo ba tisi tela nganziyo na yang tela yang kiwa inse kanji yongsa tsamalo nganzu yang la chungi ki xiong di tende yang la chungi xiong di tsawa di mariba ra mariba se da tagasik bi mongba tsamayin ba dangzin koran le yang ngunzin shi koris di song yoras dinza ani kyun tso di kyun gu tsawa di dangzin res da dangzin le ya jar goya di 다 기치슈 차고라서 타바 토바치기나 당즈 빵에 탑시고리 탐진 kim을 토바치기나 당즈 파자 제바이 피 빵에 탑시치데 디코나레도서
Nagarjuna said in his Ratnabali, the precious garland, so long as you grasp at the aggregates for that long, you will grasp at I. And for as long as you grasp at I, there will be actions and also birth. So when we think of what Nagarjuna said and also connected with the 12 links of dependent rising, which describe the way in which we're born in samsara, the root of that is ignorance. More specifically, the root of that is ignorance of grasping at the self, which acts as the very root of cyclic existence. So all these faults are also attributed to that.
존중남 domjaondi 양란드다 탐진 튠비셔럽 텐두 송세 고야기 좀된 데기 셔럽 기비기 탑 코너를 체도더니 제소 파신 쪽이 냠내로 서 송야디 시럽기비 체도레스 티카르스나 비기기에 니 뻑군기 싸와 비기 당진 파차도 제버 좀지 기 님부 타르투버디 시럽도 차고여 반자 아니 시럽기에 체도 베주치야디 송고도 아서라.
And as it said at the beginning of the ninth chapter in Devoting, all these branches were taught for the sake of generating wisdom. So to be able to abandon all faults, grasping at the self together with its imprints, we need wisdom. Without which we will not be able to abandon it. And therefore, what we need to generate is wisdom that realizes selflessness. For what is responsible for all faults is grasping at the self.
작단 계약이 깬쪽으로 당진 치고서라 당진기 비기려야지 가서다 먼저다 무슨 판직 렉사로지 툭사로지 자사로지 송에디 당진들에 놨어. 디 토니 아니 작단 걸로 계야지 야지야다마디 야지야다마레스터.
Anger and attachment arise on the basis of ignorance of grasping at a self. So if there's something that we can reach out to, kind of something that we can grasp or take hold to in terms of this is the thing that is responsible for our afflictive states of mind and all faults, that would be great. That would be ignorance of grasping at a self. This is what we pointed as the root of all our faults.
다시 셰럽 그톱기 아니 비기 주사 찬사 따사 큐는 매교치 라 네룩 타르투바디 땡라 페원디 아니 당진 가서 다지 아니 텍스 매교 당진 자면된 정원디 착당 강경 거로야지 라 디다 최근 타르투바디 제단디 디레도스라.
And when wisdom is generated, this is that what ignorance is grasping at doesn't have any graspable point, in a sense that it doesn't have any basis for grasping in the way that it grasps. We completely eliminate the foundation of ignorance and thereby come to eliminate ignorance of grasping at the self. This is what we do with wisdom.
된다 최담지 규마다고 세야디 비기 시 덴바시오나 규마다고 람탑시시오나 규마다고 제부쿠시오나 규마다고 라 규마다비 남샤디 아니 규마다비기 셈지기 규마다비기 율 문진치 마투디 테니 당진 세야디 라 당지야 게로도 왔으라 당은 규마다우디 아니 문진치 투바이나 아니 당진 라르야지 란진지 세드 라르야지 어딘디지 인사레스라.
The basis is like an illusion. The basis, the two truths, is like an illusion. The two paths of method and wisdom are like an illusion. The result, the two bodies of Buddhas, are also like an illusion. So without being able to recognize that phenomena are like an illusion, without being able to identify how grasping at a self works, grasping at a self grows and increases, it expands. Then once we develop wisdom and we come to see the way that ignorance of grasping at a self operates, we understand that phenomena are like an illusion, then we not only come to eliminate grasping at a self, but also the self-cherishing attitude.
Yeah.
So Terry was also asking, with respect to I believe the first two lines are in verse 163, that say, by further describing the renown of others, I should make it outshine my own. So Terry was asking if this is rejoicing in the merits of others. It sounds like it is like rejoicing in others' merits. Dila shengi tagba hangju pe rangi tagba singi nun sashtwa. Di shengi gewala jesu ramba da wochirebes.
Re rang shengi gewala ya jesu yaranchewa shengi yondin kobaina DMP ini susu dinyamdo pe yagbulese ta chi joyorasra nganzugi pigi gyundengi 조다란진제리 데니직 차도레 딘지기 토네 비 미지기 야부지 제원 통와이나야 디 야부레스 라마투게치 디용도자 고ngoye 니즈 비글 야부치 여바네 야부치 레스 라마투야디 아니 란진제라 투고라스 다란 차도르 투고라스 딘자 디 줘바이나 아니 소수 규기 뉴물야 네구여반자 디 줘고레스 송군도스라.
Yeah, you can say that it is rejoicing in the virtue of others. It is rejoicing in the good qualities of others. Because of our self-cherishing attitude, because of jealousy and so forth that are attributed to self-cherishing and self-grasping, even when a positive thing is said about another person and that thing is indeed positive, we cannot bring ourselves to admit that this is positive. We cannot bring ourselves to say that it is indeed positive because our own self-cherishing, which is combined with other afflictions such as jealousy and so forth. So then hearing rejoicing in the qualities of others, rejoicing in the virtue of others, we put a fight against grasping at the self, against self-cherishing, against jealousy and so forth. Gewadi Nyududa Lama Sangye Drugyune Drowa Chikya Malupa De Sala Gopara Sho Chanchu Semcho Rinpoche Make Panan Kegirchi Keva Nyamba Mebai Kone Kondu Pewa Sho Kanri Rawe Kowe Shinkansu Pendan Dewa Malu Jungwe Ne Chenre Sewan Tenzin Gyatso Shape Sinte Bardu Tengyu Chi Toni Ninju Sunju Jope Lan Cheche Seze Kanchen Tendringon Changla Pemo Tenzin Gyatso La Sowa Devso Shendun Lunju Sho Tu Tsu Chamshin Jangun Gyawe Tenzin Kyong Pewe Gonzo Dopo Chosum Kowe Le Mun Tu Gyo Pahanda So Du Shin Gon Du Shab Den Sho